Do y'all remember when last year on the campaign trail, Donald Trump said this?
You got to get out and vote. In 4 years, you don't have to vote again. We'll have it fixed so good you're not going to have to vote.
When he said that, his opponents pointed to it as an indication of his intent to centralize executive authority and rule with an authoritarian fist. His Republican apologists, on the other hand, said, oh, it's just another little Trumpism. You know, he's quirky. But it wasn't that. He was stating the endpoint of a theory that was proffered by Curtis Yarvin. Just a quick primer on Curtis Yarvin. He's like a software engineer, Silicon Valley type dude who's very influential in those circles, friends with Mark Andreessen and Peter Thiel, some of the most powerful men in the world. He's also a man who has his head far enough up his ass to pose for pictures like this. And he conveniently writes a Substack about how fascistic rule, specifically by technocratic elites, is the right direction for our country to head in. He has no political theory background or basis for his meandering thoughts, but they have taken hold in these circles that he tends to operate with. One of those people who is influenced by Curtis Yarvin is Trump's vice president and footstool, J.D. Vance, who went on a Bearded Man's podcast and said this.
This guy, Curtis Yarvin, has written about some of these things. I think that we should seize the institutions of the left and turn them against them. We should basically eliminate the administrative state. I think that what Trump should do, like I was giving him one piece of advice, fire every single mid-level bureaucrat, every civil servant in the administrative state, replace them with our people. And when the courts, because you will get taken to court, and then when the courts stop you, stand before the country like Andrew Jackson did and say the Chief Justice has made his ruling, now let him enforce it.
In case you missed it, that's exactly what they're doing. 3 years after J.D. Vance went on that podcast with that bearded man, Trump and J.D. Vance and the entire administration are executing Curtis Yarvin's plan to a T. Except as it turns out, it's not to Curtis Yarvin's liking. In fact, he feels like Trump and his administration aren't going far enough. In his latest Substack, he writes that the second revolution is going to fail just like the first did because they're not going far enough and they're feckless and they're not being extreme authoritarian enough. So much so that Yarvin fears the retribution that these poor revolutionaries will face come 2029 when Trump is no longer in power. He writes, I feel that I personally have to start thinking realistically about how to flee the country. Boo fucking who, Curtis Yarvin? You have to start thinking realistically about potentially leaving the country when the policies that you inspired are displacing thousands, millions of people. Boo fucking who, Curtis Yarvin? Truly the nail in the coffin for me for this guy, besides that insufferable picture, is this interview that he did with the Daily podcast in, I think, March, February of this year.
My children were going to a Shishi progressive Mandarin immersion school in San Francisco.
You're sending your kids to a private Mandarin immersion school in San Francisco. You, my friend, are no avant-garde thinker living outside the bounds of our society. So shut the fuck. All this to say that the very foundation of Trump's administration's policies, ideologies, actions are based on a man who has no reason to be in this space, doesn't understand his own thinking, doesn't have an end game in mind, doesn't actually abide by what he